Good afternoon, guys. Fast Eddie here. As promised, I am doing a video on tools and what tools we needed to build our house here in the Philippines, and kind of give you the rundown of we're serving. My wife and I are serving as our own contractor, and so we hired the workers. And so in this situation, anything that they needed to get the job done, we had to provide. Obviously, if you're hiring a contractor to build your house here in the Philippines, that's what you negotiate with them, whether they're going to provide all the tools and buy all the material and everything, or you know any specific stuff that as the owner you're going to do. So that's just something that you want to be aware of. In our situation here, we had the property before we actually moved here, so we had the fence, the walls put up first. That was the first thing we had, and we have our family here, mainly my brother and sister-in-law, my wife's sister, and they worked on it and they helped clear the lot and put the fence up and the gate and secured the property, and then we dug a well. We contracted to have the well dug, and then they put the septic in. The Some of the same guys that are building our house put the septic in. So and they did all that pretty much without us having to buy any tools or anything. Generally, the carpenters that you hire here, the skilled workers, they will have their basic hand tools. They will have, a hammer, tape measure, plumb bob, square, handsaw. I think I mentioned that, and their mason tools. That they will have that. So you usually don't have to buy that, but those are some of the things that they have: a level, and so, or at least a water level, and so we did not have to buy anything like that for them to get started. But once we got rolling on the house, and actually they built our kubo. Let me take a step back. We built our kubo on our property first. As soon as we arrived here, we started building that, and I don't think we bought any tools for the kubo build either. So they were able to build that all on their own with all the tools they had as well. Where we started getting tools and our first purchase was when we started digging the foundation or the footings for our columns on our house, and we had to buy a demo hammer, jackhammer, if you want. Some people call it jackhammer, but it's really not a jackhammer. It's a Makita. Uh, we bought a Makita brand demo hammer. Comes with one or two different type of bits in it, and it's for breaking up the rock. In our case, the coral rock, the limestone that's the island of Panglao is made of. Depending on where you're building at, you may not even need that. I mean, you could probably do it with a shovel. In some places, I've seen some builds on YouTube where it's just mud and dirt, and that's all you need. So that was the first thing that we had to build was to buy was the demo hammer, and we opted for a Makita one. We actually got it in Cebu, and I hauled it back on the ferry, which was no light task. Thing probably weighs 100 pounds, I think, in the metal box and everything it comes with. And it served us well. We've used it quite a bit on the job here. So I have no regrets about spending a little extra money. And it's a Japanese made model and high quality. And so the only thing it didn't come really with the bit that our operator you liked. So I ended up having to buy one on Lazada with a spike. The one we had like a flat blade on it, and he liked the spike. He said it worked better. So I hunted down one for with a spike for him that would fit those hammers. They're not interchangeable. I picked one up at the local hardware store. If it was for a Bosch, and the chucks on them are different, so you just can't interchange them, as I found out. So anyway, so that was one thing that we needed. So once in once we got rolling and building the house, and we actually, we needed some stuff for moving rock, moving material. So shovels, we needed shovels. Uh, I went out and bought handle shovels from the West, those little short handle shovels. Nobody in the West uses those things. I know some states have kind of banned them from use for agricultural workers, or like the short hoe, and because they're always bent over. Well, here in the Philippines, they like the short handles. They like the short handle with the D handle on the end of it, the thing. That's what they want to use. And if you kind of think about it, the Filipinos' physical stature is a lot less. They're not as tall as us Americans or Europeans, I should say. So a shorter handle works for them. So I ended up buying a second set of handle shovels, and they're not the greatest quality here in the shovels. I've never seen shovels break as much as I have here. And so we bought quite a few shovels, and we bought a couple wheelbarrows, which was another interesting thing because when the guys were hauling dirt and the rocks, they like to fill up the old cement bags, and then they'll lift them up and they'll take it to wherever they're going, and then they'll dump it that way. And I bought the wheelbarrows and I showed them it, and they were like, "Ah, no, no, thanks. We'll just use our bags." And it wasn't until we were building our fence around our extra property where we have our goats that they saw how handy the wheelbarrows could use, because we were making the cement here in our by the house, and so I grabbed the wheelbarrow and told them just to put the cement in my wheelbarrow and I'll haul it out there to the post holes. And then they saw how useful they were, and then the crew started catching on to it, and they started using the wheelbarrows for moving the bags of rock. They'd still put it in bags, but they'd haul it with that because they could haul two or three at a time. So it took a little bit of getting them used to using a wheelbarrow. But so we got a couple wheelbarrows for the guys to use. I picked up a pick, a rake, and they've used. I also picked up a sledgehammer. They haven't used a sledgehammer. It's probably a little too big for everybody, but we have it here. But just kind of like a miner's pick, if you will, for breaking up the piles of the dirt and making stuff loose and kind of making it easier to shovel. And then they also, which is common here, I've seen them on almost every job site. They have a homemade breaker. It's like a big old pipe. It's 1.5 inch pipe, maybe 4 or 5 feet long, and then they either flatten the end of it or they weld on a piece of flat stock that's kind of been beaten into a spear, and so it allows them to break up rock, break up dirt. It helps them digging and breaking the earth up when you're moving it, digging a trench or making a hole or whatever. And those are very common here, so you're going to need one of those. They also, what else? Oh, and then a crowbar. They also use crowbars. The standard crowbar you buy in the store in the U.S., with a curved end on one side and the thing for prying. They use those in a lot of the dirt work as well for getting stuff out of the way and stuff. So you probably need that. Other things we used when we were kind of clearing the property was our chainsaw. I sent my chainsaw from the state. That kind of came in handy, particularly with some of the tree roots we had here on the property, as well as the stumps, and we cut down a few trees with it. And then a bolo knife. Everybody in the Philippines, bolo knife is kind of a common tool. It's used for all sorts of things. I mean, my mother-in-law uses it for her weeding and stuff. They chop down trees with it. It's just I've featured it a couple times in different videos how they used it. One of the guys climbed up a tree and just whacked all the limbs off and came down and then just cut the tree down with it. And so they are pretty handy. So that's kind of everything we've used for moving dirt. When we got into the cement work, we a cutoff saw for cutting all the rebar. There's depending on how much rebar you're going to have. You could probably do it with an angle grinder or get a grinder, which you're going to need because they use the grinders here for everything. They use it for cutting the steel. They use it for cutting, excuse me, for cutting the tiles and cutting the hardy board. So it's a kind of a universal cutting tool. The grinder is here. I'm talking a little 4.5 inch grinder, and they have electric ones here. I actually I bought a cordless one from Amazon. It was a good deal on it. I have Milwaukee 18B tools, and so I added a grinder to my collection. It's really come in handy on this job here, particularly on the interior stuff. But you're going to need a grinder. But if you got a lot of metal to cut, you're probably going to want to invest in a cutoff saw. Metal cutoff saw, it just makes it that much faster, particularly if you're doing a second floor where you're going to have a lot of metal. You got metal in the columns, you got the beams and everything. I mean, they spent 3 weeks, forming up and laying all the steel out for that. So it was a lot of rebar. So something to consider as a cutoff saw. A hacksaw, you're going to need a hacksaw. They have homemade hacksaws here. The crew has, and they use them. And in fact, when they were first working on our kubo, that was all they were using was the hacksaw. And I don't understand because we had the chop saw already, but They didn't want to haul it over here. I guess we didn't for whatever reason, but you need that. Linesman pliers, that when you're working with all that steel and stuff, depending on what you need to tie off and stuff, there's a couple sets of lineman's pliers we picked up, and they've been floating around the job, and they come in handy for the guys. I've noticed that. And then like I mentioned, the grinder, get some cutoff wheels for it. A little 4.5 inch grinder with the cutoff wheels, and a diamond blade for the tiles. That seems to work well. And a welder. I think as you've seen in our builds, they're welding stuff, putting it welding steel onto steel, tying into the rebar, tying into the structure. And so you'll need a welder more than likely, and they're not very expensive here anywhere. You can pick up the kind we're using here for 8,000 to 10,000 pesos. And so, it's not an insurmountable amount of money. Like the States where, you might find a welder for $300-400. It's not nearly that much. Or kind of like little buzz boxes, but they're 220 and they seem to work quite well. So that's something that we've used quite a bit here. So then we started getting into our cement, we bought a mixer. Uh, it was a diesel mixer, cost about $1,000. It's come in handy, that's for sure. It definitely speeds things up and getting stuff done. Instead of mixing up a bag at a time on the ground, we're mixing up a bag in the mixer, and it probably, it might take you 10 minutes on the ground to mix up a bag, and in the mixer, you got 1 minute, and you're moving along there. And so we did our whole pool with it. We did everything on our house with it, except for the second floor slab, which we brought the trucks in for. But it definitely has come in handy. I don't think we'll have any problem if we want to resell it, if we're going to keep it, whatever. You can also rent them here. The only problem with renting it is trying to plan your project around using it, so it's not sitting here and you're not incurring a cost while you're not using it. But they also they sell them. I've seen them for sale. You can buy the mixer without a motor. Then you can add your own motor. I've seen them with gas motors. One thing I will say about the diesel motor, it's kind of a hassle to start. You got to get it top dead compression and make sure you get it right. Otherwise, it yanks your arm out of the socket. But it uses very little fuel, and it starts every time, and it just plugs away. We did the whole pool, and I think I filled the fuel tank up when it was started. It was full, and then when we probably got halfway through, I topped it off again, and it still got the same amount of fuel in it. So very fuel efficient with the diesel, as opposed to a gas motor. So that's something we got. Hoses, you're going to need some garden hoses, and you're going to need a water supply on your property as well. So when we first started building our fence, and we borrowed water from our neighbor. They were nice enough, we paid for the water bill, and it was no problem getting water from them. But then you're also going to want a barrel or a bucket. We have like a trash can. We also have a couple these blue food grade barrels, which you can pick them up for 500 pesos around pretty much any town. Cut out the top and just use those for storing water in. Because if the power goes out and you're still working away, you won't have any water. So, and sometimes if you don't have any, you just got to fill it up at night while the water's flowing here in our island. So that, like I said, the buckets, these black buckets, you're going to want some black buckets for hauling cement. They're just kind of useful for trash, for, the guys have taken them and made them into their carry boxes for their tools all over the job site. So I'll plan on buying a bunch of called construction buckets, I think. Some of them have metal handles. Some of them have rope handles. You're going to need quite a few of those. And so in the plumbing and electrical category, I picked up a hole saw to help drill some holes in our roofing panels. They're for wood and plastic. Nothing expensive or anything, just to kind of help end some of the mistakes we were having made here in drilling our holes. So that's something to consider. We picked up a couple drills. The guys didn't. They had one drill, I think, so we picked up a couple for the ceiling panel jobs, for putting up all those lightweight steel and the PVC panels. We just picked up a couple drills and drill bits for them. Um, what else do we? Oh, the pipe fuser for your plumbing. Depending on what kind of plumbing you're going to use, we use the white think it's called PPE pipe, which they melt together. I've shown that on the video. I didn't have to buy that. Our foreman here has that. He has one. So, we didn't buy one, but he has one. But that's something you might need depending on what you use. Some of the plumbing, the blue plumbing, I believe, is they still use glue on that. And I'm not sure what the difference of the two of them are. Whether one of them's for not, potable water or whatnot. But, we're not drinking the water, but it's what they used here on the white pipe. And so you'll need that. A little torch too. I just showed that in a video yesterday. The little propane torch, not propane, butane torch they have here, and a little head goes on it, and they use that for melting the conduit, the orange conduit for the electrical wiring. They don't use 90s here or any kind of bends. They just melt it themselves and bend it that way. So you'll probably need something like that. I saw our pool guys one time. They were using a big coconut piece of coconut that falls down, the leaves go down. They were lighting that on fire and trying to get the pipe hot enough before I went and got the torch for them. So they will do what they have to get the job done. But I think you're better off with a torch than you are with a coconut leaf trying to melt your pipe. I mentioned the grinders, the drill. I mentioned that. The tube float. You're going to need a tube float, usually piping, clear rubber plastic piping. They use that for floats. It's for levels. It's a really good idea for going around the corners. You can go a long distance with it. I've never seen them in use until I got here. I've heard of them. The old timers, in the carpentry industry, that's what they used to use. But they're pretty efficient and they're pretty effective. So you probably need to get some tubing, and inexpensive, but to pick that up for a float for them. And I've noticed if you leave them out in the sun, they get pretty baked, and then you can't see the water in them. So you might want to, just keep it inside. It might last you longer. I think we've bought 3 or 4 of them in the 4 months that we've been doing this job, because they get left outside and just get mistreated, and they don't last. But that's something you'll need. Tape measures. Let me tell you something about tape measures. When I first came here, I before I left the States, I wanted to find a metric tape measure. So, because I'm coming to a country that's in metric, and I couldn't find one anywhere in the stores locally. I thought I had found one a couple years earlier, and I sent it to my wife's family here. But I found some on Amazon, and it was inches on one side, and the other side was in millimeters and centimeters. And so I got a couple of them, and I don't know whether I thought I had one here, but so I have one here. But the thing about it is they measure things, and sometimes they measure in feet. Uh, they're millimeters, centimeters. So it's really kind of a hit and miss. And some of the tape measures the guys are using, the same thing. Some of them are in feet, some of them are in metric. And so it's kind of a I don't know how to describe it, but you always got to ask them. They say, like my wife said, "Oh, we need 6." Well, 6 of what? 6 feet? 6 meters? What is it? So you got to clarify what it is your unit you're measuring here. So I have found that kind of interesting. And even and it's just one of those things. And some of the tape measure, it's not feet, it's feets. They put an S on the end of it. So, and I'm not making fun of them, because their English is far better than my Visaya or my Tagalog. So it's just one of those things that, they when they make things plural, they stick an S on every end of everything. So that kind of covers everything that we've had to buy here to build our house. So you can see it's not an extensive list. You can get it done pretty easily. And I don't. I mean, I do keep track of the cost, but other than the cement mixer was $1,000 US, and the demo hammer was another $600. And other than that, that was the only thing. Those are the two, big ticket items, if you will, for our tools. Everything else is, pretty low key stuff to build our house. So you're not looking at a lot of stuff. So, and like I said, cement mixer you can rent. Maybe you pick up one used, or you just mix by hand, so you can get around that. The only thing that I think I might have bought earlier on in the project was a generator. I think it hasn't been too bad for us here. We had yesterday, we had a power outage, a brownout in the morning. On Saturday, we had an hour and a half with no power, and then in the afternoon, we went another hour, which is the only time it's really happened. We've been really lucky, or I don't know if the power supply here is improving, but we really have not had any brownouts that really have impacted uh, productivity. But if you live in an area where the power is not that reliable and you're having a lot of problems, you might want to consider getting a generator to power some of the tools if you need it, just lights or whatever you're going to need. It's something to consider, and then use it as a backup at your house for, if you need something. You don't have to go, full bore and get a giant diesel, generator to power the whole barunga. You can just pick up a little kind of a suitcase, one hand carry one, and it'll power your tools. And you just got to figure out, kind of what how much watts you need on your generator for certain tools. A lot of tools like drills and stuff, grinder won't use too much. I mean, if you get something in the 3,000 watt range, you'll be fine. And the only other thing I'll mention before I go here is an inverter. If you're going to bring your tools from the US, like I mentioned, I have my Milwaukee, my 18-volt Milwaukees here. The charger on them is it's not a dual voltage. It's only 110, which I kind of found surprising because most of everything I have, it runs. I should say recharging stuff like a laptop, and I'm trying to think what else I have here. My son's Xbox or PlayStation or whatever that was 110, 220. Um, but the charger for the tools, it's a 110 only. So you're going to need an inverter, a step down inverter from 220 to 110. I picked up a couple of them because when I have a skill saw, and it uses a lot, so I had to get a 5,000 watt one that was kind of spendy, which I had to buy here in country. I wasn't able to. I tried to buy one online and have it shipped here, and it was denied when it got to customs. And the little smaller one I got, that came through before I ever got here. I had it waiting here when I got here, so that wasn't a problem. But they do sell them here. I had to buy it on Lazada. None of the local stores had one that big, 5,000 watt one. The biggest I found, I think, was 3,000 watts in the store. Most of the ones they sell in the store are just step down too. The one I have, both the ones I have are step up, step down, so that you can, turn around and plug a 110 and then use a 220 tool in it. But I don't ever see myself using that. But that's something to think about. All right, guys, that's 22 minutes of me rambling on about the tools we bought here. If you got any questions, shoot me, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And if you're coming to the Philippines, just plan on, and you're not going to hire a contractor. If you're going to serve as your own contractor, just plan on budgeting for some basic tools. You're going to need them here because it's not like in the U.S. where the workers are going to show up and have tools, or they're just not going to happen. So you're going to need to provide the tools for the guys. And that's it. So let me know if you have anything. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you later.